PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of our patrons from the bottom of my heart from your support across all of our content. And let's start by thanking our Premium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown over at youtube.com/PM Entertainment. Our Platinum producers, Robbie Ballaby Miller and Trucker Sloth. And our Gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Emily O'Kelly, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Benji Kong, Marcus O'Neill, RJ Kern, Dannohh, Skinny Matt, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, Fulia Fuji, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support. Now, on with the show. Hey everyone, it's me, Ryan Turford. I'm in my house, and you're listening to the most PlayStation-rific podcast on the internet. It's the PlayStation Drive. I'm on a Discord call with my friend Matt Sowinski, and on our journey today, oh my god, we have so much to talk about because Tales of Arise is getting a demo, and then Windjammers 2 is coming, and what's going on with Blue Box Studios, so jump on into the PlayStation Drive. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Hello, my good friend Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, you're still recovering, Ryan. You can definitely tell because during the show intro, not only did I blank on like what to even talk about like before we even did the intro, but then like I totally flubbed the intro too, and I'm not going to record it because I've got stuff to do today. So we're just going to kind of leave it as is and kind of go for there. But I told Sean yesterday you've got tired Ryan yesterday and you've got recovering Ryan today. That's kind of where we're at right now. But our long, stuff from like work thing from outside of the podcast is finally over. I'm so excited to talk about games with you today, Matt, because I actually played games for once. Yay! Which is very exciting to talk about. So I hope you're doing okay as well, Matt. But Matt, we got to clean the garage a little bit because, it's dirty. There's things in there. If you like what we do and you want to support the show, you can head on over to youtube.com/YumiCapri, where you can see our beautiful faces every single week because we post a video version of this show, as well as the Xbox Drive, as well as the RPG Cave, as well as audio-only versions of We the Gamercast and the Nintendo Drive. So check us out there. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, all of that stuff that the YouTubers tell you to do. You can also find us on your podcast service of choice, as well as if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will actually read that on the show. As well, you can get early access to this and all of our shows over at Patreon, patreon.com/YumiCapri. Throw a little tip in the little tip jar, and you get early access to this show, as well as all of our other shows, as well as exclusive content like the Yumi Capri podcast, like the Patreon podcast for Patrons podcast, which apparently, from what I can tell from our Discord channel, looks like we talked about biscuits and fried chicken this week, which is something. So there you go. But let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It's time for the playlist. I'm just rushing through this, Matt, because we've got a lot to get to this week. So I start with you.
All good.
You played some interesting games this week, so tell me what you played, my friend.
Yeah, I jumped into the Splitgate demo. Sorry, not the demo, the beta that's going currently. It's free on PlayStation, a whole bunch of other platforms with cross-platform play. Man, I have not been sucked into a multiplayer shooter in that way in quite some time. It's for anybody who's unaware, Splitgate is basically Halo meets Portal, where you're running around and you're either doing free-for-all or some 4v4s in a bunch of different matches. And you have portals that you can use to kind of get your drop on the enemy while also just running around and shooting people. It's a lot of fun. I used to play a lot of Halo back in the day, and I think this is probably the closest thing that I've seen to Halo on PlayStation or otherwise. And again, throwing in some Portal in there to get those physics mechanic going and being a little sneaky boy and sneaking up on people using the portals is a lot of fun. I played a bunch my first night, and then I played with some friends the second night, and it's just we were all laughing and screwing around as we tried to make use of these portals. It's really, really good, and the game will be free to play, and I mean, you can already see the microtransactions kind of creeping their way in. The loot box system is literally a slot machine.
Oh.
Like the character will pull a crank, and you'll see like a box kind of whip past the screen over and over again, and it'll eventually land and pop open. I haven't seen anything that gives me any indication that there's going to be anything pay to win. Like, it just does all seem cosmetic, and it has its own battle pass and blah, 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 blah. But man, it's just so much fun. Like I'm having a blast with it. If you're curious at all, the beta is free and it's running, and the game will be free to play. So I mean, if Halo meets Portal is something that sounds like up your alley, I mean, I would definitely recommend it, because so far it's been a blast. And I've just like, I haven't stepped into a shooter like this and been like, all right, I came first on my team, like my third game, and that's like never happened to me before, where I've been like walked into a game and I'm like, I'm actually kind of good at this. So it's a lot of fun. Have you said anything about this, Ryan? Has Splitgate come up on your radar at all?
Not currently, just because, again, I think when the beta started is when kind of my, work trek kind of started. So I think that's part of the reason why I just haven't paid too much attention to it. Not only that, but like Halo meets Portal doesn't sound super appealing to me, because I like Portal and I like Halo, but I don't know if on paper I love the idea of them mixing together. But it's certainly something I want to try before the beta period's over, because I'm definitely interested in at least playing it, and maybe I'll change my mind on how I feel about that, the on paper model anyways. Plus, I actually play a lot of Halo on Xbox, because we used to have Halo nights like every Saturday, where we were basically playing Halo 2 every week up until like a couple weeks ago. So I actually love Halo a lot. So I'm interested in at least checking this one out. But yeah, at this point, I haven't had time to, but maybe in the next week or two, because I think the beta is still going for a while. I'll have time to check it out. So
it was good fun. And then I sunk more time to Neo, The World Ends With You. That game just gets more interesting as the story progresses. I'm kind of, I don't want to say anything because of spoilers, but like I think I'm somewhere between like 12 to 15 hours in now.
Okay.
And like the story's picking up more and more. It's really interesting. The characters continue to be great. The combat continues to be a lot of fun. I just love the world. And I just, again, as I said before, I'm surprised with how much that game has grabbed me. And it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. But what about you, Ryan? Because you've been playing a couple cool things as well. One of them is Old Faithful, but what's going on?
So, of course, Old Faithful being Final Fantasy XIV. I won't bore people because I've talked about it on almost every show. But I'm getting ready to give Final Fantasy XIV a break, because I've done kind of everything I want to do before the expansion comes out. Because there were some loose ends I wanted to kind of take care of before Endwalker comes out this fall, and now I'm kind of ready to take that long break. And of course, now the floodgates are open for me to kind of explore my backlog, because I have quite a big backlog that's kind of built up over the last couple of months of games that I just have not checked out. I've been playing Tales of Legendia on PS2, which is a really fun Tales game, but again, I won't talk too much about that, because I want to talk to you about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which I know is a game a lot of people really enjoyed. At the time it came out in June, I was busy doing the reviews of Guilty Gear Strive and Ninja Gaiden and Disgaea 6. So like I had no time that month to actually get a chance to check out Ratchet and Clank, and I'd been kind of putting off playing it because I knew that my big work thing was coming up, so I wasn't going to have time to play it over July. So I was like, okay, well, let's just put it off until this is over, and then it's now that behold, we're finally beyond my work time, and now I've finally had a chance to play it, and this game's a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun playing it yesterday, because again, I just started it last night. I'm maybe a couple hours into Ratchet and Clank. I mean, for the most part, for the gameplay, it's more Ratchet and Clank, which I love, because I actually really am a big fan of the Ratchet and Clank games, and I was very excited when this got announced, because I loved the remake that they did when the Ratchet and Clank movie came out, but then I love all the older Ratchet and Clank games. My favorite Ratchet and Clank game is A Crack in Time. I love that game, and I'm so happy that this one just feels like really fun to play, combined with the fact that it's got some of the best visuals I've seen in any game. So I've been having a lot of fun with Ratchet and Clank, and I'm excited to talk about it more as we go on. I know it's a little bit old hat, because I know people have already, for the most part, had a chance to dive into Ratchet and Clank, and are not, new to the party like I am. But I'm excited I'm finally getting a chance to play this game, Matt, because I know a lot of people are going to be talking about it for Game of the Year, and I've been excited to play it, ever since they announced it. So there you go. We'll talk about that over the next couple weeks, because I'll be playing it for a little while. Although I've heard it's only like 10 to 15 hours, so I could probably finish it by like next show, I'm guessing, at this point. So,
are you a platinum hunter, Ryan?
Yes and no. It just depends on the game. So with this, since I'm enjoying it, I'll probably go for the platinum. I've heard it's like not too difficult to get for this game.
It's not too difficult. There are a couple missable trophies. That's the only thing I'll say, is just be aware that like I was going to go for the platinum, and then I saw that I missed one, and I'd have to restart the game, and I was kind of like, I don't really want to. So just be aware that there are a couple missables.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. I mean, I know that with Ratchet and Clank, usually it's pretty good about letting you go back to old areas, but if there's missable trophies, it's like, oh no, I'm a little bit worried now. But again, it's one of those things where if I don't get the platinum, I don't get the platinum, because I'm not like too ingrained in the platinum ecosystem. As long as I'm beating Mr. Badbit over at the trophy room, that's all that matters to me. If I'm beating him in platinum trophies, that's all I need to do. I can't catch up to Kyle Stevenson though, because he keeps playing too many like $5 like instant platinum games. So I don't know if I can catch up to him. But there we go. All right, I'm slamming the brakes on this conversation, Matt, because it is time for some breaking news, because we got lots of news stories this week, because we did have a Nintendo Indie Showcase that happened this week, which is interesting. But first off, though, this story is mostly for you and I, Matt, because we had to put this here. Tales of Arise is getting a demo on August 18th on PS4 and PS5. God, I'm so psyched for this game. I can't wait to play this demo, and I can't wait to see what this game actually is going to look like. Matt, how excited are you for this demo?
I'm super stoked. They're making a bunch of changes to combat and the overworld and everything, so I'm excited to kind of just get a feel for what the game is going to be like. A little disappointed that the progress doesn't transfer over. I mean, I think that's kind of become so common nowadays that if a game's demo doesn't do it, it's a little more jarring, but I completely understand it. I mean, it is what it is. I'm stoked. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what the combat feels like.
It's also possible, too, that the reason they're not doing that is because it might not be like the intro to the game.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
There's something about the intro they don't want to reveal or something like that, especially if you, like, ever played, like, Tales of Berseria, for example, where it was, like, having the demo be, like, the intro for that game would make no sense because it would be weird. So I'm imagining it's something similar to that, so maybe the demo is, like, 3 or 4 hours into the game, and maybe that's why they don't want to have it carry over. But you're right, that does kill my enthusiasm a little bit, but not enough to make me not want to try it because, again, Tales of Arise is like probably one of my most anticipated games of the year. So I'm excited to try it out. So there you go. Next up, and we talked about this a little bit last week because we were like, man, I wonder when Axiom Verge 2 is coming out. Maybe it's a couple months away. Who knows? No. Axiom Verge 2 was released on PS4 during the Nintendo Indie Showcase, which happened on Wednesday, so yesterday, from the day we're recording this. The PlayStation 5 version is coming later this year, so we don't have the native PS5 version yet, but I mean, it's a 2D, pixel art platforming game. Like, I don't know how much the PlayStation 5 is really going to add to that game besides kind of the haptic feedback or adaptive triggers if they're doing anything with the DualSense specific features. But graphically, it's probably the same with the PS4 version. So I'm excited to check this one out. I haven't bought it yet, but I'm probably going to pick it up before the month is up. But are you excited about this, Matt, now that it's here?
I'm very curious. It's reviewing really well. I want to check out the original before I jump into the second one because, like I said, I've never played the original, and it's a game that's always been on my list. I've just never gotten around to it. I'm excited it's here. People seem to be really, really stoked on it, and I'm definitely going to check it out once I get through the original. I don't know when that will be. Hopefully by the end of the year, because I feel like this game is another one that people will be talking about when Game of the Year rolls around. But I'm excited to check it out. I'm glad it's here. It's awesome. I love stealth drops, Ryan. Yeah. I love it when they're just like available today, and you're just like, oh crap, new game. It's always exciting.
Well, the crazy thing was like during the Nintendo Indie Showcase, they had like 8 of those where they were like all just dropping that same day. So yeah, it was really crazy. Like Axiom Verge 2 though was a game I was not expecting to do that with. So for them to do that, I think was a pretty big bombshell. And I think was awesome to see. I was a little worried that when they said it was available today, that maybe it was just the Switch version and not the PlayStation version, but it's awesome to see the PlayStation version up now. All right, next up, and Matt, once again, we got to talk about Blue Box Studio. It's one of our favorite topics on the show as of recently, apparently. So I called this story, What the Heck is Going On with Blue Box Studios? Abandoned demo delayed due to technical issues. They didn't really say when an ETA is going to happen. They just said, when it's fixed, we'll just tell you when it's fixed, essentially, because it was supposed to go up on the 10th. And basically, it just gave people an error message saying, come back soon. And today's the 12th. It's 2 days later, and it's still not fixed. So I have a crazy theory about this that I know people have been kind of circling around, and the fact that PT launched 7 years ago to the day. I don't feel like this is a coincidence that it's delayed. I feel like even though like we're recording for full point transparency at like 10 in the morning, on Thursday, on the 12th. So if anything happens this afternoon about this and this podcast instantly becomes old, that's why. But I've been kind of won over a little bit by the conspiracy theorists over the last couple of weeks. You've kind of heard me from like a month ago when we talked about the story for the first time, where I was like very skeptical that this was maybe a conspiracy, a crazy, Konami thing. And it was more like an indie studio thing. But with every little thing, I'm like, more and more convinced now to like on the other side of the pendulum, where I think that there's something up with this. Like, I don't think any of this stuff that's happening with it is not intentional in some way. But Matt, what's your read on this situation with it being delayed?
See, I got two Matts right now. I have let's call it realistic Matt, where, is this just an indie studio that's way in over their heads, that like things have now spiraled to a degree that is so out of control that they're like desperately trying to figure out what to do next? There's that one. There's tinfoil hat Matt, that's like reading into all these conspiracy theories, and now some people are saying, you know what, Kojima was never involved. This is Konami trying to move on without Kojima, but do things a Kojima way. Or, you know what, it actually still is Kojima. Like, there's so much going on. And, like, of course, all of this floats around with the rumors of all of the state of play rumors that's been going around. It was supposed to be a week ago. Now, a lot of insiders are saying it's actually going to be next week. Is that why it was delayed? Like, there's so many kind of things happening alongside each other, all these coincidences that either are just hilariously and unfortunately timed for Blue Box, or this is really going to be, looking back, one of the most ridiculous marketing cycles ever, because like at this point we've had so much of the it's happening, no it's not, it's happening, no it's not, it's happening, no it's not, that like I feel like people are starting to get frustrated more than excited now. If this was on purpose, I feel like it's going on a little bit too long. Yeah. Where are you at, Ryan? Because you said there's a theory, and I want to hear it. So
again, my theory is that it's probably a Konami thing. They're going to do like a PT style thing where they're going to the visual presentation will go up this afternoon to celebrate the 7-year anniversary of PT, and it's going to be some kind of weird Konami reveal with Konami without Kojima. That's what I think, because I don't think that they smoothed over the waters with Kojima and them trying to do some weird Kojima thing with the marketing, which of course is why there's been so many weird problems with it, because it's Konami and they don't really know how to manage stuff properly. So that's my read on it. If you were to ask me today, but who knows? Like tomorrow or the next day, I might have a new answer. Because you said it best. It's just like, I don't know what's going on here. Like whoever's doing this, I think it's gone on way too long, and I'm just ready for them to tell us what this actually is at this point. Like at this point, if the technical test isn't going to be fixed, if it's an actual technical problem, I wish they would just come out and like be like, you know what, here's a trailer on YouTube of what this actually is. If it's not actually, this big kind of Konami like reveal, like why, like it's like no other game really has like an interactive teaser like this, so or an interactive experience like this on PlayStation. So it's weird to see that this one indie game gets that privilege, and then it runs into all kinds of problems. So I think that there's something up with this. So my theory is I'm pretty sure that we're going to hear something about it today, later this afternoon, because it's PT's anniversary, and it's such a like an on the nose coincidence that would, unless it's some kind of weird red herring, like I would be shocked if we don't hear something today about this.
Well, I guess we'll find out. I'm so curious. I'm like you said, I just want to know. At this point, I just want to know. I'm losing interest, but only because I want to know what it actually is, not this smoke and mirror tomfoolery that's been going on for far too long, Ryan.
Yeah, not only that, but I don't know if you saw this, but a pre-order page went up on PlayStation Network for Abandoned. You can't pre-order it yet, but the page is actually there with the full description and everything. So, but that came out around the same time that the teaser was supposed to go live, so on the 10th. So I don't know. Again, I still don't know what that's supposed to mean. It's we've seen like full descriptions and titles change before. So I don't think that means anything, but I think that means that whenever this goes live, you'll be able to pre-order this game, and we'll like definitively know what this is. Because I had also come out there saying to many people on Twitter this week who would come like, because I saw, for example, like one of our friends, Steve, over at iPhone in Canada, he had stated on Twitter that that as soon as when this goes live, we'll finally know what this game's going to be. And I tweeted at him, or we might be even more confused than ever before, whatever we see what this trailer is, which it's not outside the realm of possibility. But yeah, I just want this to be over already. I want off the ride, Matt. I just want it to be over. All right. Next up, this was the last kind of story that kind of came out of the PlayStation Indie news cycle that came out last Thursday that we had talked about on the show, but we didn't get a chance to talk about this one because it was announced after our showtime. And this is a pretty big one, actually. Monster Metroidvania game Carrion was announced for PlayStation 4. It is coming later this year. For those that didn't play Carrion, it actually came out on Xbox One and Series X last year. It's a Metroidvania game where you play as an evil goop monster that essentially absorbs human beings or other things to actually get powers or just to become more powerful. It kind of reminds me of an evil Katamari game, or you're playing a Metroidvania version of The Thing, essentially, which is just really, really, really cool. So this is a game I really liked, except for the fact that it had one of my biggest pet peeves in all of Metroidvania games, where it doesn't have a map and all of the not only that, but all the locales, because you're in this lab facility, this underground lab facility. All of the areas kind of look the same, so they're not even really there's slight color coding between them, but you can get lost very easily in this game, which I hate when it comes to Metroidvania games. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when they don't have a lot of easy navigation options. It reminded me a lot of trying to navigate Metroid 2 Return of Samus on original Game Boy, because original Game Boy is only 2 colors and there's no map in that game, so you would get lost all the time. So I know Sean, my co-host on the Xbox Drive, actually really liked Carrion, and I know a lot of people liked it more than I did, but for me it's harder for me to kind of forgive that kind of issue. But I know a lot of people liked it, which is why I wanted to mention it here and see if people are excited about that. Matt, have you seen anything about Carrion, and are you excited that this is finally coming to PlayStation 4?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of reviews and stuff when this was initially coming out, but the game is a little bit too gross for me. I'm not a particularly big fan of that kind of art style. So seeing it, I was kind of all right, I heard good things, but it wasn't really anything that was on my list. But hearing now that it doesn't have a map just ends it for me. That, I agree with you. If I'm the kind of gamer that I get really frustrated if I get lost for too long. And that sounds like a game where I'd be eternally lost in. So no, thank you. But I'm happy it's here for the people that are excited about it.
Especially too, because it's a very short game. You can beat it in a couple hours, but if you don't beat it in that couple hours, if you put it down and come back to it a couple of days later, you're gonna be totally lost and have no idea where to go next. And you'll basically at that point you may as well just start the game over, right? So that's how I feel about Carrion. Again, I think it's got some fun mechanics. It just has some of my biggest pet peeves in Metroidvanias, and it's tough for me to kind of recommend for me personally. But I know, again, a lot of people are excited about this one, so I wanted to mention it here. All right, next up, this one got us a little bit down yesterday on the Xbox Drive because we talked about this one yesterday. But Saber Interactive have announced that Evil Dead the game has been delayed from fall 2021 until February of 2022. They didn't give an exact release date. They just said February. The Evil Dead game was a game I was actually really looking forward to because it actually it was kind of like the Left 4 Dead craze that we're kind of seeing with Back 4 Blood coming out this year, where it was essentially Left 4 Dead but Evil Dead. And I'm actually a big fan of the Evil Dead movies, so I was really excited for this game. But it being delayed, I think after Sean and I talked about it yesterday, I think it makes more sense with this move because it was going to come out in a very busy fall this fall, and it was going to be this multiplayer 4-player kind of co-op game because it was very much trying to be like Left 4 Dead but with Evil Dead. So I think maybe February of next year probably is a better window for this game, but I'm excited to see more. It's just this is the type of game I'd have seen love to see this fall. But Matt, I know you're not a big fan of spookies, so you're probably not a big Evil Dead fan, but does this do anything for you at all?
Not really. Like I said, these kind of games aren't usually my thing. I tried to get into Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th, and while they were fun, just not entirely my thing. So while it sucks that it's delayed, I'd rather them take their time, especially with the property that I know a lot of people really, really care about. This, my co-host over on our podcast loves the Evil Dead, and he was very excited about this as well, and similarly disappointed. So take your time, make the game right, and when it's ready, people will have a blast with it. I think you're right. February is probably a great time for a game like this to come out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think even though I think we're starting to see a lot of games kind of shift to next February, I still think it'll be better than releasing maybe because it was probably going to come out in October because it's a spooky game. So it'll come out like around when Back 4 Blood was coming out, Battlefield, a bunch of different multiplayer games. So I think it definitely would have been tougher this fall. All right, last news story is another delay. Life is Strange Remastered Collection has been delayed until early 2022. True Colors was also delayed on Switch, but it was not delayed on PlayStation, and it will still arrive on September 10th. Plus, they announced a new DLC pack that is coming on September 30th called Wavelength, which is going to be like an extra episode starring Steph, which was a character from Life is Strange Before the Storm, and you're finally getting a chance to see her in True Colors. She returns as a character this time around, and then she's going to have her own story with this separate DLC. So, again, another thing that I was actually really excited to play like all the older Life is Strange games first, and then play the new one. And kind of play them in order. I mean, I played them all already, but I would have loved to play kind of the remastered collection first and then dive into True Colors. But because it's delayed to next year, I don't know if I'm going to end up picking up the version that comes with the remastered collection, just because at this point, I don't know if I really want to play them right away. But I am very excited for True Colors. Like, that game looks amazing. I love the Life is Strange games, and I'm very excited to play this one when it comes out on September 10th, which is around the same time Tales comes out. Like, they're like a day apart from each other. So it's gonna be a rough week for me, I think. But I'm very excited about this one. But Matt, what's your excitement level for Life is Strange?
This is a series I've always wanted to get into. I'm pretty sure I own the first one on PlayStation, and I've just never really gotten around to playing it. I was always really confused as to why the Remastered Collection was coming out after True Colors. This was a kind of like similarly to you, Ryan. I was kind of like, all right, maybe this is a time, I'll pick up the Remastered Collection, jump into the series, and go into True Colors. But it was always weird to me that they were coming out. The enhanced edition was coming out after.
Yeah, it was only like 20 days, but it was still after the main game for some reason.
Still super strange. But I guess now with these delays, things make a little bit more sense. Maybe that they're having a little bit more trouble getting that game running properly, or maybe they're just more focused on True Colors, which is totally fine. I think this definitely does push True Colors into a wait and see until next year kind of thing for me once the Remastered Collection comes out, because while I understand that those games aren't inherently connected, I do kind of like to see where things start. I have a hard time jumping into a new game and then going back to the older games, and just kind of, the quality of life changes and everything else. So while I was excited for True Colors, I think this delay does push it for me as well into next year to kind of see the Remastered Collection first and then jump into True Colors once I'm done that, if it connects properly.
And I will say this game is actually probably going to have a little more overlap and be a little more connected to the first Life is Strange and Before the Storm than something like Life is Strange 2 was. Because Life is Strange 2 was like very, very loosely connected to the old games. Like, it mentions one or two events, but for the most part, it's pretty much its own story. But this one, even though it's its own story, it looks like it's got a lot more hooks into, what happened before it. So I do think it'll be important to have played those games first to get like all the nuance. So yeah, I think that's a good strategy, Matt, waiting until the remasters come out first and then playing those, and then if you're excited for more, to play True Colors then, essentially. Even though, again, the main character doesn't connect, the fact that they're bringing a reoccurring character as like a central part of the story, I think there's going to be more there than we're kind of expecting. So
September is going to be busy enough anyway with Tales and with Lost Judgment. I think the fans are going to be there for this one, but I'm curious to see also sales-wise, because I do think a lot of people are probably on a wait and see for this one as well. But I wish it all the best. I hope it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It is time for the carpool. Listeners and viewers at home, if you would like to have your question read on the carpool, we have a number of ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave us a question in the comments section of the YouTube video, and we will answer it on the show. Additionally, if you follow me or Matt on Twitter, Ryan Turford on Twitter, or Burnout_Matt on Twitter, we usually tweet out a questions post every single Wednesday afternoon, so you can leave your questions there. Or if you want to join our Discord server, the Yumi Capri Discord, it's free to join. Links in the show notes. You can join there and then go to the PlayStation Drive section and leave your questions there, and we will answer it on the show. Just like Todd Oxtra at Talkstra did, and he asked the question, of these past games, which do you think could be revisited? Colony Wars, Tomba, Mark of Kree, The Order 1886, The Puppeteer, or Dark Cloud? So to give you a chance to think about this question, Matt, for me, the one that would make the most sense to revisit, and why I'm actually kind of surprised that they've never gone back to, is actually Dark Cloud. I think that even though that franchise was only on the PlayStation 2, I think it has like a pretty big following, combined with the fact that I think a lot of the things that make it really interesting and unique would actually really work really well today. Like I think people would really like that game. So for those that didn't play it, it's essentially an action RPG where you actually go out and actually collect a lot of resources, and you're kind of like building up this town that along the way. So I think that between the city building and the action RPG elements, I think it would make like a really cool modern day game. And the other one I could actually see from this list is Colony Wars, because we don't have enough, dogfighting space shooters nowadays. Like it used to be a really popular franchise back in like the PS1, PS2 days, but then it's kind of like fallen off a map since then. Ever since like Project Selfie and stuff like that on Xbox 360, which don't even get me started about that game. That game's terrible. But Colony Wars, I think, would be like a really cool return to that. We saw like a return with something like Star Wars Squadrons last year, and I would love to see more developers take on that genre of games, and I think Colony Wars would be a great fit. But Matt, what do you think about this question?
I actually had to look up what Colony Wars and the Mark of Kree were. The rest of them I was familiar with. I had to look those two up. I actually agreed with you, Ryan. My answer was going to be Dark Cloud as well. I think with how much kind of city management stuff and alone action RPG stuff is so common that you have things like Stardew Valley and a bunch of other awesome games that kind of have similar elements. I think if you took Dark Cloud into that sort of direction, put a little bit more life sim, put a little bit more like city management and its finer details, and then it's also kind of I got like Legend of Zelda vibes from it slightly, which I mean, PlayStation doesn't really have a big action RPG in that respect. Sure, you have Horizon, but that's obviously more focused on your bows and stuff. I think Dark Cloud could make a really, really easy success for them. The other one that jumped out at me was The Puppeteer, especially if they took it in a VR direction. I'd never played the original, but I heard so many amazing things. There was a lot of love for that game. If you took it in the VR direction and kind of worked with VR, I think that would be pretty cool. And I also think you could see something along the lines of what happened with Astrobot, where it had a lot of success on VR and then they brought it over. I think The Puppeteer could potentially have a similar kind of use case. I think that if it's successful enough with what they do in VR, I think it would be cool to bring it back. Because I think that game, well, like I said, I never played it. Everything I heard about it sounded really unique and really, really interesting. And I think that could be an easy win too.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about Puppeteer as well, and I've just never played it either. So, and that's a part of the problem why we'll probably never see another one, because the first one did so poorly. Whereas I know like Dark Cloud and Colony Wars and a lot of these other games on this actually did really well financially. It was just issues with the studios that kind of ran into problems. Like for example, Level 5 is doing its own thing nowadays. Or I can't remember who even did Colony Wars back in the day, but I don't know if they're still around. Or even like the Order 1886, for example, like you're not going to get the original developers back for that. So who would actually take a project like that on? But I just had to chuckle a little bit that you had to look those up, Matt, because I know like Colony Wars is like a way older franchise. That's like a PS1 era franchise, for example. But just to touch on some of these other ones, I think Tomba would be really cool. But I think that's the type of game where like you could actually maybe lend it out to like a company like .emu. And they could do like a really faithful like 2D platforming Tomba style game, like a reimagining of Tomba, because they've done it with so many great franchises like Wonder Boy, Streets of Rage, and I think that would be like very much up their alley. And then the Mark of Kree, I don't know if the Mark of Kree needs to come back. I mean, I think the games were fine back in the day, but I was never like super into them. And again, same as Order 1886. I don't even know who would do that game at this point. So. Or like I don't know which PlayStation studio I would want to be like tasked with doing, the Mark of Kree nowadays. So
yeah, and that's part of it. I think especially because with the pedigree of a lot of these games that are coming out of the first party studios now, I don't know if I'd want anybody's time put towards something like The Order. While I've never played it either, and I heard middling things about it. There's actually a pretty vocal fan base that wants a sequel out of that. I just would rather them not.
Yeah,
nothing against that game, but I just think there's bigger and better things. But actually like Dark Cloud, Puppeteer, and even Colony Wars, I think could actually work really, really well. And I think they'll all be pretty different from what we see in the kind of first party catalog right now.
Yeah, they really like fill in some of the gaps that we've talked about on the show plenty of times that PlayStation Studios is really missing, like a space shooter or an action like a Zelda like action RPG. Like those are things like PlayStation really is missing from their first party, especially now with everything kind of going to, you know, the third person over the shoulder shooting game. I mean, having like an action RPG that, you know, wasn't focused on shooting and was more medieval. Like, yeah, I think that would be perfect. So there you go. Those are our picks from your list, Todd. But I think most of these would work, but I don't know if I think it might be tougher sells for Sony first party to handle most of these. All right. Next question comes to us from Dan at Dannoh12. He asked the question, how many memory cards did you all have back in the day? First party and third party brands. So Dannoh, actually, believe it or not, I was always the type of person that was very conservative with their memory cards. I actually didn't have a giant pile of them for PlayStation 1. I only had 2 of them. I had a first party black memory card that I actually still have today. It's currently sitting in my PlayStation 2 right now. And then I used to have a third party Lara Croft Tomb Raider one that was like almost like a mini bust of Lara Croft on the end of the memory stick that went into my PlayStation 1. So those were my 2 memory cards I was rocking for PlayStation 1, and they didn't break throughout the whole generation, and that was enough blocks to get me through, you know, all my JRPGs. So for the most part, I didn't really need to, you know, format them or anything like that, or I didn't need to buy any more. And then on PlayStation 2, I've only ever had 1 memory card, and I still have it to this day. It still works fine, and you know, it has all of my game saves on it. I thought about with the PlayStation 2, they actually, I think it was on Stone Age Gamer, you can actually pick this up. They recently released this product that's just called the Memory Stick Pro or Memory Card Pro, that essentially is like an SD card slot for a memory card for a PlayStation 2. So you slide into your PlayStation 2, put an SD card in there, and you can have like 10,000 blocks of save data for PlayStation 2, which will basically allow you to save a save for every single PlayStation 2 game. So there are products out there for those that are still playing PlayStation 2 games. Like me, again, I talked about Tales of Legendia earlier in the show. Like, it's a game I'm still playing right now. So what about you, Matt? How many PlayStation memory cards did you have back in the day?
I love this question. I actually think it's so entertaining. Well, when we were on PlayStation 1, you know, I was the oldest out of 3 boys, and we only had, excuse me, 1 memory card, I think, for PlayStation 1, and we ran into a lot of issues with that. Of, you know, my younger siblings accidentally saving over my files, or et cetera, et cetera. So that was brutal. So when we got the memory card, I think pretty late into the PlayStation 1. So when PlayStation 2 came around, we were all very vocal about having our own memory card. So I had one of the first party blue ones. It was like this translucent blue one.
Yep.
And then I also had like a couple, like I had one more just kind of gray third party simple looking one, just because, you know, I was playing much more actively in the PlayStation 2 than I was in PlayStation 1. So yeah, I had like a translucent blue first party one and just like a crappy secondary third party gray one. And still, somehow, my brother sometimes managed to overwrite my crap, which was not fun. I think the one that stands out to me the most, it was like some sort of like very cartoony ninja game where you played a little ninja with a very big head, and I was in like the second to last world, and then my little brother accidentally erased my file, and I never went back to that game, and it still haunts me to this day.
That just hurts to think about, Matt.
Yep. Yeah, it was not fun, but yeah, I miss memory cards. I always kind of think that it was such a, while I understand why they're gone, I like you said, I kind of miss having just like a cool little thing, be like, all right, I'm going to my friend's house, pop this out and take it with me and have my saves with me. I always like that area. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Now, real quick, while we're on the subject of memory, because we didn't talk about it in a news story this week, because there wasn't really a ton of news about it. The PlayStation 5 SSDs, of course, we talked about it on last week's show, how you can put them in there and all the stuff about how they work. Well, Digital Foundry actually released this really interesting video this week, Matt. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, where they actually tested speeds with the hard drives that they put into the console. And from what they actually found was actually really interesting, because what they found was not only was the external SSD, or sorry, the internal SSDs that they installed, not only were they as fast as the internal one that comes with the PlayStation 5, but it was actually faster loading games from the third-party SSDs rather than the main console SSDs by a couple seconds. So it wasn't like a huge difference at loading, But it was different. It was enough of a difference where they were able to actually figure out that there was actually a big difference between the two, and I think that's actually really promising because we're only at the early parts of the generation right now. Like think about in 3 years from now when we're actually going to get probably faster SSDs than the ones we have now. Like I can't even imagine just how much faster games will load with like newer SSDs. I think that's actually really incredible. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, you should definitely go check it out over at Digital Foundry. I thought it was actually really interesting. And it was not what I was expecting. Like I was not expecting to get better performance out of like a third-party SSD rather than the one that comes with the console.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I missed that video entirely because I'm already playing the delete and re-download game with PlayStation 5. I just wish they were more affordable at this point because it is quite pricey to jump into any one of those ones that Sony recommends. So I'm definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on as time goes on. But that's awesome. I would have never guessed that they would have loaded faster. I would have expected the exact opposite.
Yeah, and some of the things they were theorizing as to why it was faster was like, for example, the OS has to run off the main drive while also running the game itself. So that might cause some slowdown as well as some other factors. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting and kind of cool. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of in the wait and see game too because this sounds really promising, but I'm waiting until it comes out of beta first before because I don't want to opt into the beta and then have it maybe possibly brick my console and then maybe not be able to get a replacement because PlayStation 5s are hard to get right now. So
it'll explode.
Yeah, so I'll wait till it comes out of beta first and then maybe look at hard drives. Although to your point, they're very expensive right now. Like the Western Digital one that comes with a heatsink, for example, is like $330 Canadian. So it's pretty expensive. All right. Last question comes to us from Seumas MacIsaac at Famous Seumas, and he asks the question: with Sony's deal with Crunchyroll now complete, do you think it will make sense for Sony to offer a Crunchyroll membership with PlayStation Plus? So as a big Crunchyroll fan myself, for those folks that don't know, because maybe they don't watch my anime like we do, Matt, Crunchyroll is like an anime subscription service. It's similar to Netflix where it's a monthly subscription. You go on there and you have all of this different anime from Japan that's usually subbed. They have some dubbed stuff, but for the most part it is all subtitled, and it usually arrives like an hour after it finishes airing in Japan. Sony just bought them this week. Although what was interesting about this deal and interesting about Seumas' question is that I'm actually surprised they didn't do this a long time ago because Sony actually owns Funimation, which is also the other like competing anime style service that's essentially the same as Crunchyroll but is more focused on dubs rather than subs. So I'm actually kind of surprised that that's not something they've offered sooner with Funimation, which even though we've been hearing a lot of traction recently from rumors that they're probably going to offer it in like some sort of upgraded version of Plus with Crunchyroll. If you would have asked me a week ago if I thought this was going to be possible, I would have been like, no, because they would have done this with Funimation like years ago. So I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that maybe they'll do this with Crunchyroll. But what do you think about this news, Matt?
Yeah, I'm actually tentatively excited about this. Like you, Ryan, I'm already paying for Crunchyroll. I'm already paying for Plus. If I can have like some sort of subscription that combines the two at a lower cost point than the two separately, why not? I mean, Funimation and Sony already said that they're planning on integrating Crunchyroll and Funimation together into one kind of super app. So I don't know if we're going to see that before that's ready, just for kind of, ease of use and to make things kind of streamlined. What I'm curious about, because I do have a couple questions. One, like I already have Plus for the next like 2 or 3 years. I tend to buy them, en masse when they're on sale. So I wonder how, and I know a lot of people who do the same. So I wonder how that'll affect kind of current subscriptions. Like, are you going to be able to pay like a modified fee to kind of add them in, or will you only be able to do that once your subscription theoretically runs out? Because if it's going to be 2 or 3 years before I can, get a new Plus subscription, I'm curious about how that will work. Along with, I really do wonder if this is going to be the time when they finally bundle in PlayStation Now into all of this as well. Because like you would think that, having PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now in a bundle together would have been an easy sell as well. And if they kind of going for this almost like premium plus subscription category, I kind of think that like this Funimation Crunchyroll merger of a beast together, and if they're going to throw in PlayStation Now as well, I think that would kind of be the time where I would finally jump into PlayStation Now if I can get all of these things together at a discounted price. Now, granted, that would probably be pretty expensive for all of those things together. But I'm curious to see what this is going to look like when it's finally ready to be officially unveiled. Because like first step, like I said, I'm curious about how Crunchyroll and Funimation are going to come together. And then the next step after that, how all of that's going to get integrated into Plus and whether Now will also be in that package. Because I think that this is an easy win. I see a lot of people kind of saying like, same thing. I already have both. Why not get it cheaper? Do you think there's a chance that PlayStation Now gets rolled in with all this as well as the kind of like Game Pass Ultimate?
I think they could do
competitor?
like 3 different tiers. They could do kind of like Xbox does, where they have like the base kind of PlayStation Plus tier, and then they do like a Plus version that comes with, Crunchyroll and Funimation, because I'm assuming they're going to get bundled together at some point, like you talked about, because they're going to get combined at some point, and then from there you can have like the ultimate bundle that comes with PlayStation Now. I think like doing like that would be interesting, but again, they could go a bunch of different ways. They could have, it would be weird to have one like just base Plus, which would be like $9.99 for example, but then have like a $25 a month like ultimate bundle that comes with Now and Crunchyroll, like especially for those that want Now and Plus but not Crunchyroll. Like it would be weird to have an option that like doesn't just include those two together but then not Crunchyroll. So yeah, I think they go this a bunch of different ways, and I think like some kind of 3-tiered system is probably where I think they'll go with this, where they'll have like and maybe I misspoke before. I think maybe they'll do just base Plus, then Plus and Now, and then Plus Now and Crunchyroll as like a three combo. I think that's probably how they'll go about doing it, especially because I think Crunchyroll is probably going to go up in price when they merge the Funimation library with it, because they're obviously not going to be able to get you for 2 subscriptions at that point. So I think that'll play into that a little bit too, is that Crunchyroll will actually be not as cheap now, because you'll have like so much of a massive, larger library because of all the Funimation stuff. Because Funimation also gets a ton of exclusives and stuff too. So I think that they're going to jack the price up a little bit for that. So there you go. That's what we kind of think about this. But we got to go, Matt. But before we go, Matt, plugs go.
Yeah, you can find me over at twitter.com/burnout_Matt. And you can find all of our reviews, podcasts, and other stuff over at youtube.com/burnoutwriter.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/YumiCapri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Matt Sawinski, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 13 of the PlayStation Drive, and we're out.